Coming up on the Greg and Tim Show podcast.
And I didn't really need it, but I've been getting into this dependency thing.
Yeah.
And
So are you addicted?
I walked 11 miles today.
Okay.
And I did the comparable about how many calories that burns.
Yeah.
It burns less than the average piece of cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. Wayne's World. What was that sound? What did they do that for? For Wayne's World. Do you remember that?
No, they went like this.
Yeah. What was
this metal grate of a door?
Okay.
And you're at the Red River X, and this guy who hasn't graduated grade 3 closes the door and puts a cotter pin in the door. No mechanical thing holding me, just a swinging door on a hinge with a cotter pin. So there's a whole bunch of hot mic issues with him and Harrison Smith.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. That one sucked. Will that make the show? Hey Harrison, you hit me in the.
Get your earballs ready. Welcome to the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Take time to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Greg and Tim.
I'm going to start.
You're going to start it? Too bad. Welcome back to the Greg and Tim Show.
Welcome.
You
First
always
of all,
want to start things, and
yeah,
today I got to.
And you know what,
Today
though? We have an
turn.
apology to the viewer. Because originally in this time slot, we were going to have Scarlett Johansson. There was a scheduling conflict from her party, and so we weren't actually able to air that today, but it will come soon. As of now, we have the regular Greg and Tim show, which we haven't done in a long time. Because we had the best ofs, and
we
had a bunch
of interviews.
Yeah.
Lorraine actually asked me the other day, she's like, are you guys an interview podcast now? Or are you guys like the Greg and Tim Show?
I asked that question.
What is going on?
5 months ago, because I thought we are. I asked the exact same question.
Yeah.
So what are we?
So it's a podcast.
Okay.
Where we talk about topics that are fun for the guests and for us.
Yeah.
And for our listeners and viewers.
Right.
I don't think we can put ourselves in a box.
But if we can ask the viewer, are we an interview show? You, Jimmy.
Well, while the viewer is thinking about
Joanne,
that, don't forget
Tony,
hit the like, subscribe,
Tommy,
share. All those buttons that are below, down below.
Yeah.
And don't forget to hit them, because if you don't hit them, people don't get to see them.
I was speaking of names and saying different names on air or whatever. I was so sad that our last guest, Tyler, did not have a clue. And I figured he wouldn't about Romper Room.
Romper Room, yes.
Ding dong, day-da-dee-do. And we're just getting to that place where the younger generation forgets everything we went through, and
never mind the younger generation, like people that are in their late 20s, early 30s. Tyler's 30.
Yeah,
did not know what we were talking about.
Didn't know about the Romper Room. Didn't know about Bill and Ted's.
When you said the Scarlett Johansson couldn't make it today thing, it reminded me of what's his name, Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
Sorry, Damon, we ran out of time for Matt Damon, so maybe next time we may
not be able to. There might be some scheduling conflicts coming out soon.
I just watched an episode of Entourage, and Matt Damon was on the episode of Entourage.
Okay.
He plays himself on the episode. I don't know if you've ever seen Entourage.
I've heard about it. Another great show, and I've never watched.
It's really funny. It's got some great part. It's interesting, but anyway, it's about like a movie star with his entourage, and he's got his agent and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But so Matt Damon reaches out to him, and then he runs into him on the street in LA.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, Vinny, how you doing?" He's like, "Good." He's like, "You get that package I sent you?" He's like, "Yeah." "Well, when can I expect a check?" And he's like, What kind of check do you need?" He's like, "Vinny, it's for the children. It's for the children." And he's like, "Yeah, for sure, man. I love children. Like, I'll help them out." "Well, don't take your time. Like, let's get this done. I want it in my hands by tomorrow, right?"
Yeah.
So then a day goes by, and he calls him, and his brother, Vinny's brother, answers, and he goes, "Hey, Johnny, it's for the children, blah, blah, blah." And Johnny's like, "Yeah, I'm not working right now." And he's like, "Okay, put Vinny on the phone." And he goes, "Okay." And he's like, looks around, and Vince is like, "No. Right?" And then he goes, "Hey, put Vince on the phone now. I know you're lying." And he's like, "Sorry, Vinny. He Jason Bourned me."
He born me.
And Matt Damon's character, I don't know. I think he's like one of the most underrated actors out there. because of Good Will Hunting and the history behind Good Will Hunting and him and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Some people say that he stole that script.
Yeah.
And repurposed it, and it wasn't actually written by him.
Right.
Did you know that?
I didn't know. I've kind of heard rumblings about that story, but I haven't heard the actual story. But that stuff I assume happens all the time.
Like repurposing scripts and finding scripts. Yeah, it's
not
weird.
only that, but even in the music industry, someone writes a song, it doesn't mean they do the song, they pass it on, someone else does the song, right? So same idea in movies, right? They get repurposed, I assume, all the time.
No, but like they wrote themselves down as the writers and creators of the movie.
Yeah.
Like a lot of scripts will go hand to hand and they sell them to different places, but they put their name on it.
Right.
And there's not backlash, but there's a conspiracy theory that they don't actually own, like they didn't actually write it.
Right.
Because Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were like 20 years old
but
when it came out, right?
Lots of guys when they're young will write stuff like that. That's just gets thrown around. Nobody
This is
cares.
one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting.
I would believe that they did.
Yeah.
I think 20 years old, like a lot of very smart people already by the age of 20 are established and they're just brilliant, right?
So at the end of every episode, we're going to say, sorry, Scarlett Johansson, we didn't get time to get to you
Or
for
at the beginning
today.
and at the end. Speaking of Matt Damon, he seems like one of those like regular guys who's a big, huge movie star that would sit down and shoot the whatever at a coffee shop with you and just hang out, right?
Yeah.
And I think he's married to like a bartender. Like she's not even
bartender.
famous. Yeah, she met. I think she was a bartender, just a normal quote unquote everyday person.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that and you surround yourself with real people, I think it grounds you. So
you become a real person.
Yeah,
too.
and based on how we started, I would think, and I could be wrong, Matt Damon is just a cool guy to.
That's what I would hope.
Yeah, so
yeah, cool. Anyways, how's your week going?
Pretty good. So here's what I want to tell you about now. This is the first. So since we've been having the guests, we've had 4 guests, right? Yeah. Since the best ofs, I've had this habit ever since Avery Martin, actually, where I have come to podcast record, and sometimes because I've had a long day of work and I want to just get myself going, I have every time, and we had this recorded, a full energy drink. First time was Red Bull. Now it's been
Rockstars.
Rockstars. I guess
ever since our trip on July 4th.
Yeah, you told me they were better. They're very good. So. Anyways, and even when the last interview we did, I think we just recorded an interview a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't really need it, but I've been getting into this dependency thing.
Yeah.
And so
are you addicted?
So today, like I didn't have one. I had a Zevia.
Are you getting the shakes?
And if I have like the shakes, and if I sweat, you'll know there's some dependency issues for these energy drinks. And in fairness, I've only done this in a record, or if I'm driving overnight. I don't have them I don't crack them open every day.
Which is happening almost every day.
No, not driving. I've only driven through the night twice in this whatever our trips. Twice. Yeah. 2 days.
And you've only had energy drinks twice?
Plus our recordings.
Plus.
No, plus are our times that we have. So 4 plus the last one. That's 5 interviews. And I guess Avery Martin. I don't know if there's anything. I think Avery Martin was the last one we did before our best ofs, right?
I feel like there was a time where you...
Okay, I'm just completely addicted.
You're drinking a lot of energy drinks right now.
So,
but we've done lately, we've done plenty of interviews. They're going to pop up above Tim's head as we talk about a couple of them here. So, first one since seasons 2 started was Willie Jefferson.
Are we going into the topic? Are we going to that topic? Are we going to run down that? Are we done? How you didn't tell me how your week has gone, and we're all of a sudden you're going to move on to topic 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I told you the Matt Damon story. That kind of took up all that time.
Yeah, but that's not about how your week went.
Yeah,
I want to know how your week went.
We have certain time slots here for amounts of time that I can talk, and you told me that if I go over those amounts of time, that I will have to cut out other things that I talk about.
I told you none of that, and I'm gonna tell you something about my day today
that
I already told you, but I didn't.
You didn't tell the viewer,
right?
Okay, listen.
And then after that, you have to tell us how your week's been. Okay, all right,
fair.
All right,
that's fair.
so I went for a 5 mile run.
Okay,
and I did a mile walk after that, so 6 miles.
Yeah,
and then I did another 5 mile walk today. I walked 11 miles today.
Okay.
And I did the comparable about how many calories that burns.
Yeah.
It burns less than the average piece of cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. Less by like 150 calories.
So what you're saying is...
And Dave, who will remain, last name will remain anonymous.
Which Dave? We know multiple Daves.
Well, the
last name starts with a letter.
The big P. The big P.
David. Oh, okay.
He ruined it for me because like a few years ago, he read off all the calories of all the pieces of cheese.
They're on the menu now.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was in ignorance. He's like, Tim, look at all these. And he's like, this is 1,600
Was this in Minneapolis when we went there?
No, it was in No, it was in San Jose.
Oh, okay. That was a long time ago.
Well, it was
eaten
like
cheesecake since then.
Well, I probably have since then. That was a while ago. That was the right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah,
we don't talk about it, but
can
you imagine that?
Don't talk about
11 miles, and it doesn't even burn off the average piece of cheesecake. Anyway,
yeah, but your body's burning calories. That's additional calories to that time, right? So, like, your body burns 1,500 calories, but your body also burned 500 calories during that time. You know what I mean? So, like,
not 500, but
no, but in like. You have to remember that your body is continuously burning calories. Yeah. When you run, that's on top of a regular burn. So, if you're allowed to have 1,700 calories a day to maintain the current weight that you're in, and you burn 1,500 running, you can have then 3,200 calories.
So I can have that piece of cheesecake with those 11 miles.
Well, you can have that piece of cheesecake providing that it doesn't go over your 1,700 calories.
That's crazy.
Right?
1,700. And I'm about 1,900, 2,000.
It's funny because
one piece of cheesecake is the entire amount.
I was just at Cheesecake Factory on Sunday.
Yeah.
And the meals ranged from 1,100 to 2,200 calories in just the meal, not the cheesecake.
Right.
So now you got to look at it from the point of view, your meal has taken up more than your allotted calories.
Yep.
And then you're going to have a piece of cheesecake, which is going to double that.
Yeah.
So now you've doubled your allotment of calories just in one meal, which is why I don't eat when I'm going out.
Right.
Right. And that's just my own personal thing that you don't like, that you think is stupid, that you've told me is dumb. That you've reached me out about.
Things that I've told you is stupid and dumb that you do.
I do.
One of
the many.
I have a list.
Let's hear them all. Let's list them all.
Let's transition to how your week's been.
My week was great. I went to Minneapolis last weekend. We got to go to Valley Fair. This is the second time I went to Valley Fair in 3 weeks. The first time was with the kids, and this time was with adults. So I got to go on all the big rides. Yeah. I did all the big rides. I feel very cool because I don't do big rides a lot of times, and I did them, and I was very happy in myself. I did the corkscrew. Yeah. I did the steel venom. I did the wild thing. I did the renegade. If you've been to Valley Fair, those are all really fun rides. Yeah. So I say that if you don't do rides, you should try them.
Right.
Because they were a lot of fun. The only one I didn't do, and let me ask you this question.
Okay.
So, you know those swings that go really high, like 10 stories in the air?
Yeah.
Right? And they swing you, it's a swing set, essentially, but 10 stories in the sky. My concern is the chain.
Right.
It's that little tiny chain that's holding you, right? And there's a whole bunch of links going up. And I'm like, I don't want to do something where a chain can break.
Right.
I've seen chains pull apart and break and all that kind of stuff. Your chain is only as good as its weakest link.
Yeah.
Right? One of the guys that's with us, he goes by the name of AA Ron.
Who's still with us, yeah.
He's still with us.
Because he didn't do the chain ride.
We all didn't do it. But he said, why are you so afraid of it?
Yeah.
I'm like, and I explained the chain thing, and he's like, well, all the rides have chains on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but they're not being held by chains. And then for the rest of the day, he's like, see, there's a chain. Yeah. And then, hey, there's a chain. And I'm like, yes, I understand that. Yeah. But my seat is not being held by a chain in the air that's meant for a swing set. And I'm sure that it's super high tensile steel or whatever. Yeah. But I have a fear of something.
Of dying.
No, of dying. But it's the same as the zipper. Do you remember the zipper from the Red River X?
Sort of.
So it's the one that goes around like this.
Yeah.
But it also spins.
Yeah.
So it goes two different ways.
Yeah.
And you're held there. You're standing basically in a slightly leaning position against this metal grate of a door. and you're at the Red River X, and this guy who hasn't graduated grade 3 closes the door and puts a cotter pin in the door. A cotter pin. And then this thing flips you around and you're pushing against the door the whole ride. And I'm thinking to myself, all that's holding me in the place is that one little pin.
Yeah.
I'm never doing this ride again.
Just Google
how
many times has someone died on this ride.
No, I don't want to do that because I'll find something out that I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But I will not do it because like I did it once back when I was like 18 or 19 years old and I saw him put that pin in there and I'm like, that's it. That's all it's hold. There's like no like mechanical thing holding me, just a swinging door on a hinge with a cotter pin. So I will not do it.
Oh, but you did all the other rides, so kudos to you. I wouldn't have done
But
all
these
those.
yeah, you wouldn't have?
Rides and I do not get along. I'm the purse holder guy.
Well, that's you just walking around.
Yeah, but
with
also
Frankie.
Yeah, but also I'll hold anyone's purse because I just don't want to go on the rides.
Why not? What are you afraid of on the rides?
The rides.
So the rides themselves at Valley Fair are high-end, like they're like fixed rides, right? Yeah. They're engineered, they're structurally sound, they're not moving from place to place. The ones that are driven by carnies, from, Winkler to Steinbach to Enola to Altona, those are being driven on the back of a truck and then reopened up by a carny again that's graduated grade 3.
He's now graduated.
Grade 3.
He didn't graduate before, but now
he's finished up his math homework on the way to Altona. So like that, I don't go on those rides because they make me fearful.
Right.
But I do go on like Disney and like that kind of stuff.
I think when I was young, I went on a ride and something happened, and ever since
did it fall apart?
No, it just something like I was sick or something. I remember something about it, and ever since then, I just am hesitant to go on rides. Yeah. I do feel like if we went to Knott's Berry Farm a few years ago, and I did a couple.
Yeah.
But the big ones, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I could. Fun. I don't want to.
The big ones are the most fun.
Yeah. And somebody could say, you got to master that fear, Tim. You got to master that fear because it's only, one part of life. And if you master one fear, you can master them all. And I get it.
Oh,
but fear. I tend to not go on the big rides.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that was my weekend. We went to the Vikings Niners game.
The 49ers.
The 49ers had lost that game, so a couple of the people in that group were very sad because that was the first time the Vikings have played in the Niners in a while in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Did you know?
Yes, I did.
That the 49ers have not beat the Vikings at home since like 1982 or something like that?
Really? And they probably don't play there very much.
No, I think they're like 0-10 or 12 in Minnesota. I'll have to fact check that.
Yeah.
Those of you, I'll put the thing right below, right here, right now. That's their record, and I believe it was 1982. So like the Niners have beat the Vikings in San Francisco, but they've never won in Minneapolis.
82 was the year of the Magic Catch, right? Montana to Clark. 82.
I don't know.
81 or 82.
The cool thing is they're showing like highlights. So like they're showing what's his name? Oh man, I can't even remember the
49ers.
Yeah, from the 49ers and Vikings game from like back in
Jerry Rice, Joe Montana.
I think it was the late 90s, and it was like this miracle comeback game or something. But
it's almost 40 years old, extending plays and throwing a perfect pass for the win. And
they're showing it during the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this doesn't bode well for our friends.
Right.
Because
and in fairness, the 49ers now have injury issues. McCaffrey was gone. Debo went down. So it's
Kittle
not
got hit in the... I don't know if you saw that video.
I did not, but I'm going to assume in the lower
area. And he talked about it for a long time live on a mic.
Yeah.
Like he was mic'd up for the game. So there's a whole bunch of hot mic issues with him and Harrison Smith.
And the Harrison. Oh, that was mean.
That hit to a sensitive area by Harrison Smith.
Ooh.
Right in the, you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me. That one sucked. Holy shit. Will that make the show? Hey, Harrison, you hit me in the
And he's like, Harrison, you could have hit me anywhere, but you hit me in the beep.
The ankle. Yeah.
Yeah, the ankle. Anyway,
the other ankle.
It was a good game. It was fun. I love Minneapolis' stadium. I love the vibe at the Vikings game. We're 2-0. I'm a we now with the Vikings.
When they're doing well.
When they're doing well,
Greg's a we.
I've always liked the Vikings.
And the proximity, they're the closest NFL team. Sam Darnold doesn't look too bad in 2 games, but he's always been a quick starter. And who talked to us in 8 weeks?
A quick starter?
A quick starter.
I thought you said crick.
He can be a quick starter in the regular season.
Are you pronunciating again? Or are you enunciating?
I am trying to not do either. So
okay, perfect.
All right. So let's talk about the last few episodes. Let's talk about them. So
let's briefly talk about it.
So in the not so briefly, but in the last 4 weeks since we did our best ofs, Willie Jefferson stopped by.
Yeah.
Mitch Calvert has stopped by. Also,
Mitchell
Mark
Calvert.
Dolphin.
So let's explain who these people are. So
and then Tyler Carr. So go back and
so Willie Jefferson, defensive lineman for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Yep. He had the record of most sacks and knockdowns within the CFL.
Most times bringing the Grey Cup to Buc-ee's as well.
Most times bringing the Grey Cup to Buc-ee's.
He holds that record.
He is a Texan and great interview. So if you want to learn a little bit about Willie Jefferson, about what he does because he's so tall, what he does to his family because he's so tall, that was a great chat. Yeah. And then the next one was Mitch Calvert.
Well, before we go on to Mitch, I wore my flippin' Buc-ee's outfit the entire episode and he did not blink. I thought some kind of response, it would throw him off his game. Yeah. He'd have changed his facial expression in some way. Didn't even phase him. And then I was like, I guess I have an hour and a half in this hot suit. I didn't really. So you see me the entire time. We kind of talk about it a little bit, but if you catch the episode midway through, you're like, what
is that guy wearing?
Anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. The next interview was Mitch Calvert, who is a fitness guy here in Winnipeg.
Eating, all those good things.
We talked to him about dad bods. Yeah. We talked to him about fitness and different topics, which you love. You love these topics, which is why we brought him on.
Which is why we started with a Mandela effect, because we knew we'd get into all the other topics that people would know he'd talk about. Yeah. So we thought we'd throw him off when he talked about. And he agreed with me that all your theories are bonkers. And
I don't know. I think we should probably replay that. Yeah, check it out. It's the Mitch Calvert interview. It was the interview with Mitch Calvert,
which is called the Mitch Calvert interview. Very good. Excellent.
The redundancy office of redundanciness.
Mark Dolphin was week 3. He's better known as Mickey Moose.
Mickey Moose, Mark
Love
Dolphin.
To bang that drum. Bang, bang, bang. Awesome story. I love he's had some great stories, man.
Yeah. I think we ought to have him on again. Yeah.
And he told us some stories after when the camera stopped rolling.
We can only go for so long with the full interview.
And they were stories that are maybe not meant for young ears under the age of 35.
Yeah.
So we were
speaking of stories not made for young ears.
Tyler couldn't watch them.
Tyler was not allowed to watch those videos. Tyler brought a little different flavor. Yeah. Tyler Carr was the next interview that we did. So we've done 4 interviews in season 2 so far. Yeah. And this is our first time getting to speak in a podcast format, but Tyler's interview was great because we got to learn a little bit about somebody we didn't really know. Yeah. And I think some people that hadn't seen the interview didn't know some things that he shared. Yeah. And we got a little deep in some of the parts too, which were great. And we had a lot of laughs. Tim's laughs were,
I laughed. I made him cry.
You laughed. You made him cry,
which is my goal. Really,
is to make all of our guests
interviews. Cry. I'm like the Barbara Walters of this podcast.
So I'm working on a few other guests.
And yes, you wouldn't know who Barbara Walters is either.
No, you would not. He might know who Barbara Walters. Babs. I know who Babs is.
Maybe.
I'm working on some other guests as well to come on the show. Like Mark Dolphin, I'd like to have him come back on the show and tell some more stories. But Dan Chenier, Dr. Dan, is going to rejoin us again for season 2. So we're going to have new topics.
Oh, he's walking in the room. Oh,
no
Kirk Keelback
no
moment.
Kirk Keelback moment. He's going to come back and join us though, and then I think we'll have a few other returning guests, plus some new guests that I'm working on that we can't really announce yet because we haven't got dates firmed up.
Right,
yet.
and
but there's
again,
3.
The scheduling conflict for Scarlet.
There's 3 and Scarlet, which we got to figure back out again.
Yeah.
There's 3 guests that I'm working on right now that are brand new to the show, and as soon as we get them scheduled in, they will be up and about.
What I like about the interviews, and you do such a great job getting these people in, I really give you a lot of kudos for that. But what I love about our guests that we've had in studio is they're all very, they very different. They come from different backgrounds, different opinions, and that's one thing that I really appreciate. Some shows are very much interview people that just think like them.
Yeah.
Either on the left side, right side, middle side, whatever, politically, socially, religiously. And I think that narrows the interest level and how interesting it is. We've done a good job, I think, about getting people with a wide spectrum of opinion.
We're throwing a big net out there, and we're catching tuna, salmon, rainbow trout. We're catching everything, right? And we're trying to do that because we want to know about them.
Yeah.
Like, our interest is more so in like what drives other people. And like we always have our topics of the day, which we have a great topic for today. But our topic of the day really with the guests every time is what they're about.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we've found a lot of things about what people are about. We got some great advice from guests, which we shared in our best of episode, where it shows like, best advice for a filmmaker, best advice for somebody coming up in radio, best advice for somebody that wants to play football, all those kinds of things, which I hope people are learning from, right? And it's not just about, sitting down and listening about them on their regular talking points. We want to know the guest.
Yeah, like getting
not what they
not
do.
just what they do for a living, but who they are, their families.
Yeah. Everything drives everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're driven by something, I'm driven by something, our guests are all driven by something.
Yeah, the next person we have that's coming out in about a week and a half, we won't say who it is, but they had twin girls.
Yeah.
Twin girls, 3 years old.
Yeah.
Boys.
Twin boys.
Boys, it was boys, sorry.
You want to restart that?
No, it's fine. But so we want to know, life, not just what you do for a living, but looking after twin boys that are 3
while doing what he's doing,
balancing out life. Everybody, some people are married, some people aren't, some people have kids. We want to know,
and then interests of that person, right? So we learned about a lot about what they're interested in and what drives them. Again, it always comes back to why.
Yep.
And I really love the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek?
Cynic.
Cynic or Cynic?
Cynic is right.
I really love that book by him because it'll drive your motivations.
Yeah.
Your why is your motivations, and we want to know people's whys, and that's what we try to learn on these episodes.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched a lot of the podcast episodes with the interviews,
then we'll ask you the question: why? Why?
and then like share them. Like if you're on Facebook right now and you're seeing this, click the share button on our podcast interviews and get it out to more people. Yeah. The more people that get to see these interviews, the better they'll do. And the better they do, the better guests we'll get. The better guests we'll get, the more Tim will
not wear a shirt.
Wear his shirt. More Tim will wear a shirt.
No,
don't take it off. We won't. Ratings right into the ground. And we're also working on trying to get some sponsors.
Yeah.
We're doing some realistic things with this show, and the sponsor part, if you are a sponsor of, something and you'd rather sponsor us, let us know. Reach out to us, gregandtimshow@gmail.com. And we would love to partner up with some local people or some international people or Scarlett Johansson if you're listening.
Yeah. And we just launched the website a few weeks ago, right?
So website, gregandtimshow.com.
gregandtimshow.com, right?
Yep.
And so I think we haven't even really promoted here.
We haven't really.
So yeah, for sure. Is it right here?
Let's do a promotion right now.
It's
in the description below. gregandtimshow.com.
Yep.
If you want to, click on that link. You can watch all things Greg and Tim. We have a blog on there.
Yep.
We have our Instagram feed on there, and we have our contact information on there. So that is the best place to get all things Greg and Tim. And catch up on some of the old shows. The feed for the podcast is on there from Spotify if you want to listen to it on our website.
But you said fee for a second.
Feed.
It's like, there's a fee?
There's a Spotify
Why
feed.
Why am I getting that money?
The money goes directly into my account. And and then we have a blog. And we haven't really talked about the blog either. Nope. The blog is from our topics of the day. So we're going to have a topic of the day today. And afterwards, we're going to post that as a clip show later on. In the weeks or so coming, and from that clip we create a blog, and that blog will give you all the information of what we talked about and give you more in-depth stuff of what we did.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about our summer's coming to an end. We're recording here September 19th.
Yep.
But it's like warm and muggy and hot, so we're kind of getting some indigenous summer. I think. Can't call it the other thing.
Is that what that refers to?
Yeah.
Is a late summer?
Yeah.
Like a September summer?
Yeah.
Yeah. It has been warm here.
It has been warm, but we had
it was 32 degrees in Minneapolis the day I was there.
Even when you come back to yesterday in Winnipeg, when I was going to bed at like 11 o'clock, it was 23 Celsius, and it felt like 30. The humidex was 31.
I know.
I'm like, whoa. Like, this is September.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the summer is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Fall is around the corner. The leaves are falling. So let's recap
by the time the show airs, summer will be over.
Yeah, that's right. Technically, 21st is the first
day of
fall, right?
Yeah.
So my summer has been fantastic. We've done a few trips. We went to go set up Raina in Nova Scotia. She's going to school at Acadia.
Yeah.
She's doing well so far, but we went over to Halifax, spent 4 days there, drove everywhere, spent some time. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Went out to a Nordic spa in the area. It was gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the reason why we did our 4 best of series was because we were both away and our schedules didn't really coincide with each other.
Yeah.
But we went to camp.
Yeah.
You came for a day. I went for a week to summer camp.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you expect. It's summer camp. It was fun. We went to Chicago.
Yep.
Right before the best ofs all started up, we went to Chicago.
Yeah, surprise trip for you.
That was a surprise trip for me. I did Minneapolis for the Jays, which was a blast. And I just recently did Minneapolis for the Vikings. And you also just got back from...
and then in the last 3 weeks after Nova Scotia, there was Nova Scotia.
And we're not bragging on these trips. Like, these aren't... like, we're doing all of these things still in a budget.
We took... Yeah, well, I'm not going to apologize. But Taylor's always wanted to go see the Nebraska Cornhuskers volleyball team, the female volleyball team. So I said, this year we'll go. So we went to Lincoln, Nebraska and Omaha on the way back. And so Taylor went to go see volleyball, her favorite team play. And then actually my wife and I went to the Nebraska Cornhuskers football game.
Yeah.
It was their opener. Yeah. And they're doing really well. They're 3-0, but it was awesome. It was like 80,000 people in the stadium. They won, they scored, 40 points, 40-7 was the final. Yeah. And it was hot. The sun was beating down. It was awesome.
There's so many people that go to those games for the college teams. Yeah. I've heard recently that the players are actually going to start getting paid.
Really?
To play in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I didn't understand it myself. I thought it was more so that I thought the rule was that they could get money from sponsors now. But apparently they're going to start getting paid by colleges.
Well, the rationale is they're making all this money because I spent, it wasn't much. It was like 30 Canadian dollars for a ticket. It was actually pretty cheap.
But here's the thing though.
Nosebleeds, but there was good seats.
So like the football players and hockey players, anybody that gets a scholarship gets their schooling paid for.
Right.
Right. So like Harvard schooling, let's say it's $100,000 for schooling. You get it paid for because you play for the football team. Yeah. Right. Well, the football team's making all this money. They're making millions of dollars, right? And they're giving away $100,000 scholarship for 6-year course, right? So when you break that all down on a yearly basis, they're only making the players are making like $20,000 a year, right? So now they have to be more upfront with the money and how much they're making. The problem is,
I'm not.
It's going to start making the disparity between the teams a lot more bigger because a lot of colleges have more money than others, and because they can afford better players, they have better facilities.
Plus then you're going to have a discrepancy. I don't know if the amounts of salary for each player is going to be the same.
I don't know.
I imagine if you have any kind of like the quarterback is not going to make the same amount as the backup receiver.
Yeah.
Or they shouldn't. And now you're going to have this thing as college. Everyone's going to come in and, they think they're all that because they're getting paid. I don't know the idea, but whatever.
Yeah.
The times are changing. So, and then the last trip we just got back from this weekend, we went to Seattle.
Yep.
Fantastic weekend. Just my wife and I, we got away for that. I think last year we were bumped for a flight. We got vouchers. So we said, where should we go? And then we decided, well, Seattle. We hadn't been there together.
You went to a couple baseball games?
So
what did you think of Safeco?
Safeco is awesome. So I'm going to describe...
Or T-Mobile Park, it's called now.
T-Mobile. I'm going to describe my favorite, my most favorite kind of Sunday. So Sunday, the day before we left, was my perfect day.
Yep.
We went to church in the morning, Christian Faith Church in Tacoma. Shout out to Casey Treat's church. Then we went to the baseball game, Seattle, Texas, at T-Mobile, which is good. I went there Friday night, and then Sunday. The roof was open on Sunday, closed on Friday. So it's always better when the roof is open. And that's why
it's a day game.
We hadn't planned to go on Sunday, but I'm like, roof's open.
We gotta go.
And we had the time, right?
Yeah.
And then after we left Safeco, we drove out to Rattlesnake Ledge hike. It's this amazing viewpoint. I did some push-ups at the end. We'll throw some pictures up here. I'll send them to you.
We have pictures. Okay.
Yeah, we have lots of pictures. And then after that, we went back to our Airbnb and we put in Ricky Stenicki into.
Now, what do you think of it?
It was funny.
Was that the first time you've seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
I've been telling you to see it forever.
I know, and I've seen it there, but it's one of those movies that it's kind of a guy's movie, so I'm hesitant to watch it. But maybe my wife won't like it.
Did your wife like it?
I didn't want to ask.
You didn't ask her?
But it's it's a guy's movie.
It's funny though.
A female will not find it crazy. It won't be her favorite movie.
Zac Efron.
It was funny.
John Cena.
Yeah, it was funny. It was inappropriate. It was funny. I mean, it was a Fairley. It's a Fairley Brothers.
We call
movie.
Stenicki.
Yeah, it's a Fairley Brothers movie, and it's some touching parts at the end, which is his kind of thing. But it was funny.
It was good.
Yeah,
it's a good movie.
Yeah,
if you haven't seen Ricky Stenicki yet, you should check it out.
So that was a perfect day for me. So, Yep. Anyway.
So you wanted to touch on sports briefly as well. Do you still want to do that?
Let's talk about our Bombers. Holy cow. 2-6. What are we now? 7-6? 5 straight wins?
So remember when Doug Brown was here?
I do.
And the Bombers were 0-4, I believe.
Yeah.
And Lawler was hurt. Wolotarski was hurt. Another player was hurt. We had no receivers.
Big Hill was he hurt that time too?
No, Big Hill was back by then. And then Doug Brown says,
Schoen is still, but yeah.
I've got to. Oh, Schoen was hurt, yeah. And Doug Brown says, I got to learn all these new receivers.
Yeah.
And now Lawler's back. Wolotarski's back.
Wilson has come into his.
But Wilson was a player that wasn't even on the radar at that time.
So he's been added. Yep.
So right after that interview, I Doug Brown was saying he hadn't been eating hot dogs before the games.
Yeah.
And we told him, eat those hot dogs before the games. Now the Bombers, since then, I think they're 7-5.
Yeah.
Or 7-1.
Yeah.
Since that interview.
Yeah.
I give us all credit for the Bombers turnaround.
Right.
Because
and the hot dogs.
Because Doug Brown is eating hot dogs before the game again.
Yeah.
He might only have one, he said.
In fairness, he said he was already thinking of switching. We did not convince him to start having hot dogs.
We did.
We did?
Yeah, it was all us.
Sure.
I take all credit.
And what about we?
Ontario Wilson.
Yeah.
Ontario Wilson.
Yeah. 7th best province
had
in the country.
Ontario.
Ontario? I thought it was Ontario the whole time.
Ontario Wilson. He had a huge game, and I don't think he's actually gotten as many receiving yards since that one game.
Because players are coming back.
Yeah. Well, no, because people know about him now, right?
Well,
so he had a breakout game. And Kenny Lawler's back. Calaros is doing okay. We're out with Stravler's out now, and Big Hill's out now.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about that for a little bit. So why was Claris out for 3/4 of a game or half a game, and why is Stravler out for the entire year?
Because of a player from the Saskatchewan Roughriders named Brown.
Yeah.
who hit Collaros in the head in one game, and then did a low tackle on Strevler.
And I think after the first hit on Collaros, the next day, the president of the Bombers, Wade Miller, came out and said,
This needs to be
addressed.
Yeah.
And then after the second, the suspension for game one, suspension game two.
No suspension.
Or sorry. The fine for game one, fine for game two. And then O'Shea applauded, apparently, the league doing something about it. So my question is, I guess we're only allowed to fine players? No suspend. Well, what would you have to do to get suspension?
What do you have to do to get a suspension in
right?
the CFL?
So, and apparently it was good enough for O'Shea, so I guess a fine is okay.
Yeah, and the fine is based on the player's salary, so it's always an undisclosed amount.
Right.
But it's based on the player's salary for that game. Yeah. So I think they lose a game salary.
I guess the idea is that CFL players are not making zillions of dollars like the NFL, etc.
Yeah, so if he gets fined,
when you find them, it hurts more.
If he gets fined for a game and he loses a game, now he's lost two. Yeah. Like now he's lost 10% of his paycheck.
And I didn't watch that game live because we were in Nebraska at that time. The Collaros, the not the Banjo Bowl, but the Labor Day Classic.
Labor Day, yeah.
I watched the interview. He's leaning with his head.
Yeah,
he's leading with his head. He hits the helmet. And what drove me nuts is I'm reading on social media, some fans are like blaming Collaros.
Yeah.
Because he should have retired already. Like you're blaming the victim for some guy trajectory having a target with his helmet on the other person's helmets.
The other thing we have to get off of right now is the whole like Collaros is always injured talk. Yeah. Collaros is now he's not Tua from the Dolphins, like,
which is another issue.
Which is a different issue altogether. Collaros had concussion issues in 2018. Yeah. He joined the Bombers in 2019. He's gone 5 seasons, 19, 21, 22, 23, and now 24. Yeah. Because we missed the 2020 season.
Yep.
He's gone 5 seasons without significant injury. Yeah. And
exactly. Yeah.
We have to stop talking about him being a glass quarterback. Yeah. He runs, he gets hit, we've seen him get hit multiple times and come back into the games. And we need to realize that he is just like every other quarterback now. You can't talk about him as if he's
did he actually get a concussion when he was taken out, or was it not?
I don't know if it was an actual concussion because they didn't say.
My understanding was
precautionary measures.
Exactly, and that's what it figured because he's walking on the sidelines.
He was still dressed.
So obviously the Bombers are taking his history into account when he's layered. They're sitting him out for the rest of the game, which, by the way, the Bombers didn't do much.
But you need to take his history into account. But you also need to take it into account for any player that comes in.
Yeah.
If a player gets hit to the head and has troubles getting up,
so you're saying
you're
saying it didn't matter if it was Collaros, it could have been quarterback A, B, C, D. The same thing happens. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to look out for the health of their players for the long term.
Right.
Because this is a long term player.
And going to the Tua example, he was put on IR. And that was a concussion for 4 games.
But. So Tua, the Tua situation, and this will be the last part of the sports topic, I think, because I don't think people can take much more.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. Some people will like it.
The Tua situation is Tua has stated that he will come back and play.
Right.
And do you know why that is?
No.
So there's a reason why he states this.
Okay.
So he's got a contract for millions of dollars right now. I don't know the exact contract number.
2.1? I heard Matthew said it was 2.1.
No, it's more than that.
Okay.
So Tua's contract is a big contract. Now, if Tua says, I'm going to come back and play, I'm not retiring.
Right.
His contract is now, it's guaranteed.
Right.
Right? If Tua retires, he loses that money.
Right.
If he says, I'm not coming back, the injuries are too much, I can't come back. Now, if a doctor says, Tua, you can't come back and play, that contract gets paid out.
Right.
So him stating, I'm coming back to play, is him stating, I don't want to lose.
Well, wouldn't you wait for a doctor to say that anyway?
So a lot of people are, like, all the commentators and everything are saying, like, he needs to know when to quit.
Yes, but again, but none of us are medical experts.
A doctor is going to clear him eventually, right? And he can come back to play.
Assuming there isn't actually
8 weeks down the road.
What's that?
Let's say it's 8 weeks down the road.
Yeah.
A doctor is going to clear him to come and play.
Right.
So he has to come back and play. Now, if a doctor says, Tua, you can't come back to play, if you take one more hit, you're going to get brain damage.
Right.
Right? If they say that and they force him to not come back,
right,
he then gets paid.
Right, understood.
So that's why.
I'm just saying you're ultimately, and I know there are medical experts all over social media. I get it. But what I'm saying is at the end of the day, you are waiting for medical to do what you just said. Either way. Either don't come, you can't take another hit, or they'll say stuff like it's ill-advised because if you took one more hit.
But if it's ill-advised, he has to come back and play.
No, I think
if it's ill-advised, he has to come back and play. If the doctor won't clear him to play, that's different. Then he'll get paid without having to play.
I think it's the same thing. I think it's potato. I think it's just jargon.
If he gets the clear to go back and play, he either goes back and plays or he retires. If he retires, he loses the money.
Right. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we're not going to get into any more sports talks other than the Jets are winning the cup. I'm writing it down.
You're going to guarantee that again?
Winning Stanley Cup.
And the Blue Jays aren't going to make the playoffs, I guarantee you. This year. This year, the Blue Jays are not making the playoffs. Guaranteed.
Oh, they just played the Rangers. The Rangers are who I saw this weekend. And they just won the World Series last year, and they have the same, they have the same
record as the Blue Jays.
After the last year, they 72-79. Disappointing year. Bo got injured.
Both teams.
Bo got injured again. He came back for one flipping game, and he got injured.
His hand this time, though.
And now it's a contract year. The Jays signing him.
No, he's got one more year left.
Oh, okay, but
he signed a 3-year.
Right, it was this whole thing on social media. He's not going to re-sign with the Jays, and then 2 weeks later, all my objectives is to sign with the Jays. It's like I don't believe anything the media says.
I think the Jays are going to sign both Guerrero and Bichette long term. Bichette came back, was 2 for 5 in his first game back,
right, and then he got injured again.
I don't know what he was yesterday, but he got injured.
Yeah. So the topic of the day.
Roll the music.
Okay, hooray! It's time for the topic of the day. What's that? The old
hip hip hooray! It's time for the topic of the day.
You know, like Wayne's World. What was that sound? What did they do that for? For Wayne's World? Do you remember?
No, they went like this.
Yeah. Well, what was that for?
To go back in time and to remember things that happened in the past.
Okay.
It was like their time travel, and they.
I wonder if we would have said Wayne's World to Tyler if he would have known who that was.
Oh, I bet you when he didn't know who Bill and Ted were, and he looks like Ted or Bill. I can't remember which one.
Bill. And we still don't know the actor's name. So,
topic of the day today is a very serious one. Let's get serious.
Yeah. So the topic of the day is fate. So let's talk.
Fate has it that today's topic is fate.
So, and this is because of the interview with Tyler last week. He was talking about the events with Lady Gaga and how they read the letter, which is an awesome story. I really appreciated that he shared it with us. But I asked him because I just thought of it. Do you believe in fate?
Yeah,
fate that she read that letter. She was bound to read that letter, and that was going to happen. Of the hundreds of letters she gets, she was going to read it, and that's how the evening was going to go. So we talk about fate in many, many scenarios.
Yeah,
in positive things like it was fate that I met my spouse. It was fate that I would end up in this position in my employment. Right. It's just that's how it was going to go. And some people say, you know what, when it's your time to go, when the bullet has your name on it, it's your time to go. It's fate. And there's nothing you can do about it. Right. And we even use it in negative things like people get a diagnosis of a cancer. Well, it was my fate to get this cancer, and I'm going to now live my life and reach so many people. And that was my lot in life at the end of my life to use my unfortunate event to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So my question is this, very simply, do you believe fate is actually real, or, and this is, the second possibility, do we use the word F-A-T-E, fate, to just rationalize events so they make sense in the grand scheme of life in our brains? Question.
Life is like a box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. That's a Mandela effect. I don't know if you know that.
Okay, well, let's just I can't do it.
So fate. I've done some research on fate since you wanted me to have this as a topic of the day here. So fate is like it was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
But in reality, life is cause and effect.
Right.
Right. So Tyler, he explained what he did. He laminated his paper. He did all the work. He made sure that it was big enough writing and it had Lady Gaga's stuff on it and everything like that. Right. And when he threw it up there, he threw it up after tried to be on top of all the other letters. Right. Cause and effect. Like the cause, what he did had the effect of her picking it up. Now, is it fate that she picked it up because she would have no matter what? I don't think so. I think the fate was in place. Now he says it was fate.
Yeah.
But I think the fate was in place because he put in the work.
Right.
Right? So if he didn't do all that work, it wouldn't have happened. Right? Like in general, she couldn't pick up his letter unless he wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Right? And was it his fate to write that letter?
Yeah.
Or was it his fate to have the issue that he had to write the letter about in the first place?
Yeah.
Everything that lined up as it went.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure I agree or disagree. I'm just there is a movie with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. I can't remember the title of it, but the whole thing is they meet and then he asks for her number and she's like, well, let's let fate decide. And she writes out the letter and she throws it somewhere. Like it was just gone. And he's like, well, if it's meant to be, that you'll find this number somewhere or something to that effect. Right. Just making it so it's almost impossible. So fate would intervene and actually bring them together if they're meant to be together.
Yeah.
Right. And then the end of the movie is he actually does find this number or whatever in some, I can't remember if it's a book or in something like that.
So
and they get together.
So fate.
And I'm just using that as an example to say she went the other way, in which as Tyler did XYZ cause effect, she did the opposite. She took all the cause effect out of it,
threw it away,
and just left it up to fate
and chance.
Yeah. So you're saying there's some things we can affect, and fate says no. If it's meant to be, again, if the bullet has your name on it, the bullet has your name on it.
So now we look at it from a point of view of from a belief system point of view now, right? And if you think about it from God has your life. He knows your direction.
Yeah.
And I remember a message by Pastor Leon about the library, right? The library in heaven, right? Where your book is written in heaven. And you open up that book and you go through the pages and you're like, hey, I don't remember this.
Right.
And then God goes to you, well, that's because you didn't follow what you were supposed to follow.
Right.
You went to this page instead, right? And you skipped over a few things because you didn't allow them to happen in your life.
Right.
Right. Like the fate of that happening in your life is something that's really interesting to me. Is there things that we miss out on in our life? Like Tyler getting that note written and read. If he didn't write the note, would that be in his book of life still? And he goes, hey, I didn't meet Lady Gaga. And he's like, yeah, because you didn't follow your heart.
Yeah.
And your heart said, I have to write that letter. And your heart says, I have to laminate that letter. Your heart said all these things.
And of course, there is a chance that letter still wouldn't have, there's a chance he could have went there, did all those things, and that letter wouldn't have been written.
But in the belief system that your book of life is written, if you didn't do the things that you were driven to do and were put into your heart to do, you wouldn't have lived that page.
So
in the book of
in
life.
essence, I've heard the example of a GPS system where you are meant to go to, let's say I was going to your house today and the GPS was pushed to your house. And if I'm driving and I go off over here and I stop at place to get coffee before I come, the GPS is going to recalculate to go here and here and here, wherever it is, always constantly recalculate. Even if you're going 3 hours out of the way, if you keep that GPS system, that end result. And again, that end. So my question is, maybe that end result, is that fate? Like, I know the little things.
Yeah.
Maybe. What about are we meant to do fate to do something big in our lives? Are you meant to do something that you're not doing now? Is there some fate that we aren't taking advantage of in the grand scheme of things?
So if you think about it, was it our fate to do this podcast? Because I didn't know you until 2019.
Right.
Right. And we didn't think about doing the podcast until 2023.
Right.
Right. So like, was that written?
Yeah.
Was that fate that we're going to start this out in a living room in front of a TV, move to 2 different studios, repaint, recreate, and all of a sudden now we have guests coming in. Right. Like when we started a year ago, almost to the day, did we think we were going to have 25 guests in the studio for a year? Right.
I would say for sure not fate, because the effort was put in to do all those things. Everything that we've done is because of effort that was made.
Cause and effect,
right?
But like, was it our fate to do that?
Right. Not sure. I'll give you the opposite question.
Okay.
Flip it around and say, do you think people label things as fate to make sense, in order to make some things make sense in their world?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that?
Well, yeah, like people will say, like, you know, it was fate that I got into that car accident, or it was fate that I met this person.
How about this? I've heard some people say, I was late by 5 minutes, and there was no reason to be late. This train never hits, or this. I never forget my keys.
Great example. Yeah. The guy that didn't get on the plane that
Right.
crashed in 9/11.
Right.
He slept in.
Yeah.
Was it his fate to sleep in?
Right. Or there's a really cool story about, the song American Pie, and that's about
Drove my Chevy to the levee. The levee was
do you remember
dry.
who the artist that died in that plane crash?
It was Roy Orbison.
No,
Roy Orbison
came later. Richie Valens.
Yeah.
The Big Bopper. I can't remember his real name. And Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly.
So
right.
those 3 artists who were
knew it was
massive
a
in
song.
that day, who, by the way, they crashed close to Fargo. Some people don't realize that. It's really cool. It's kind of close to this area.
Yeah.
The story goes, Richie Valens was on the back of the bus. And if you've ever traveled by plane or bus, back then it was totally different scenario.
Yeah. The buses were ridiculous.
It was so cold in the back. And again, he's coming to travel to Fargo in February.
Yeah, which is cold.
Cold, right? And he was so sick. They actually drew straws because they only had 3 seats or something like that.
Okay.
And there was like him, and there was like some roadie there, some manager. I can't remember who the 4th person was. And they drew those sticks, the straws, and Richie Valens lost. Something like he lost, but the other guy felt so, and I might be mangling this story, but you get the idea, felt so bad that he was so sick and tired of being at the back of the bus. He said, "No, you take my spot." Because he kept whining about being in the back
on
of
the
bus.
plane.
On the plane. So he kept whining about being in the back of the bus and being so cold. He really wanted to be on the plane.
Yeah.
Well, he gives it to him, or he exchanges it, or whatever, does whatever kind of agreement they have. And of course, then the guy wakes up the next day and realizes they're all dead.
Yeah.
So is it his fate? That, again, the same scenario, right? We hear tons of these stories, right? And people say, I wasn't meant to be. I was meant to live a life, and I don't take it for granted.
Do you remember the movie Butterfly Effect?
Yeah.
With Ashton Kutcher?
Vaguely, I watched it once.
So the theory behind the butterfly effect is the fact that, like, just the flap of a butterfly wing could change the trajectory of your life.
Right.
Right. So like it's a chaos theory. Essentially, the little things can lead to big changes, making it really hard to predict what's going to happen next. Right. So like, let's say, you didn't make that right turn, and then you just kept going straight. Yeah. But then when that right turn, if you had made it, a semi blew a red light, and you would have got hit by that semi.
Right.
Right. Or you screwed up, and like all these different things that can happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like you slept in for the airplane, and all those little tiny, like just a minute little thing that can happen in your life that can change the trajectory forever.
Yeah.
Right. So like, do you think that would be fate? Like, do you think that because you don't have control over some of these little things, does that make it fate?
Sometimes I struggle with things, and I come from a realistic point of view, maybe sometimes too realistic, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, well, you slept in because you didn't set it, you moron. You didn't set your alarm properly.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it fate. That makes you a dummy, and you got lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So where does luck come in? Where does chance come into it? Right.
Yeah.
And if we believe in fate, then we believe that somebody's holding the strings and making sure that it doesn't matter what we do. Again, we go back to when the bullet has your name on it, the bullet has your name on it. So it doesn't matter what I do. I can work out, I can eat properly, and it doesn't matter because it's fate that at age 86 and 6 months, I'm going to pass away.
So being a Christian, you have to live in faith.
Right.
And you have to live in the belief that God has a plan for you. Right. By not believing in fate, does that hurt your belief in God?
I'll follow up a question with a question.
Okay.
I'll add a question
to
you, and I'll come back to that. Is fate a word we use in religious, I'll call it church maybe, or do we have different words for it?
I don't know.
Like, I'm trying to, in my brain, it's like, do we use fate? Because I know what you said. From what we were brought up to believe, fate does not, I think, exist, because there are so many things, again, like the butterfly effect, or there are so many things we can do in our lives to adjust.
Well, it's exactly what Pastor Leon said. When you open up that book, there's pages in that book that you didn't get a chance to live. Right? Like, I was supposed to be 85 and I only lived to 60.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you smoked cigarettes all your life and you drank heavily. So you hurt your plan.
Or our church in that instance wouldn't believe in an overall broad-scaping fate idea.
So there's fate, but you can, again, cause and effect.
Right.
Determinism is what it's called.
So what's your definition of fate? If we can do things to adjust things or to change things, what, in your opinion, does fate mean?
Fate means that it was bound to happen because of the cause that you've been living.
So we create but isn't that the opposite?
We create our own fate.
Okay, so then predestination, as far as being fate, does not exist. You would disassociate the two terms then.
I think that if you follow God's plan, listen for the word, you can then live your fate as predetermined. But you can get off of that by eating wrong, drinking, doing the wrong things. You go bungee jumping and the rope snaps, right? Like, there's different things that can affect your fate.
I'm just trying to determine, based on the fact that we can control our situations to a certain degree, what the definition of fate is then.
So this is the end thing that I've got for fate. I'll read it out and then you can tell me what you think. So fate might influence some things, but there's also randomness and the ability to make choices.
Right.
It's not completely one or the other. There's room for both fate and free will and how life happens. So essentially, fate exists with free will. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. I'm still struggling to understand then what the definition of what fate means in that scenario.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the question. Maybe the question is, for people out there, what do you believe in fate? And a secondary question, what the heck is fate?
Yeah.
Because I see there's a bit of a contradiction in my mind, and I could be wrong, but if fate means you're meant to be or do or be something, then how could our decisions change that if we're meant to do it? To me, it's a bit of a clash of ideas, and I'm having a hard time getting past that. But again, this is all conversation. So maybe those are the two questions to ask.
So question one is, do you believe in fate?
Yeah.
Question two is, what's your definition of fate?
Yes.
So, and then for me, like, I believe in fate, but I believe in fate based on works as well, right? Like things happen because of things happening.
Right.
And because, you might not control all those things. So like if somebody gets in touch with you for a really good, like expensive quoted job, you might not have reached out to that person.
Right.
That person may have reached out to you and put you in the right path to
Right.
accept or deny it.
Right.
Right? Do you accept your fate? Or do you try to change your fate? Right? And I think that there's two different ways to look at that. And I think if you don't accept it,
Yep.
you can redirect your fate.
Right. Either way, I think it's a deep subject matter. And I
think it's fun though.
It's fun.
It actually runs a little bit sideways with the universes.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Because you could choose one way, and then all of a sudden the universe goes the other.
It stays in the same realm.
Sort of.
We're still the same. I haven't got to the multiverse.
So, like the butterfly effect is multiverse. He lived multiple different lives because of one little choice he makes.
I'll have to rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remembered. I'll watch it again. That's my
think about the biggest things that have happened in your life.
Yeah.
And how they came about.
Right. The combination of just chance and action.
Right? Like when I went to open up that retail store up in Thompson.
Yeah.
The only reason why I was called and recruited for that was because my dad ran into the regional manager at the airport. And they said, hey, like, I'm looking for this kind of a person, blah, blah, blah. Now, is that fate? Because does fate bring them together?
Is that fate or is that a random occurrence where you get into a conversation?
Which is strange, right? So, like, she has this random conversation with my father.
Yeah.
And my father is the exact person she should talk to.
Right.
Because she knows, like, he knows the person that she needs.
Right.
Like, does that... That's where fate gets into a little bit of a muddy water.
You could rationalize that two different ways. You could say, sure, it's fate. It was meant to happen. Either God brought it together, the universe, whoever you want to say, or you could say, listen, chance occurrences happen all the time, right? So, and I think that's that's what my question is, right? Are you making a different story in your mind?
No.
Either way, and you benefit one or you don't benefit the other.
So the whole butterfly effect thing with that is my dad meets her.
Yeah.
She tells him he gives her my phone number.
Yeah.
I get in contact with them. I get the job. I move to Thompson. Things happen in Thompson. I move back to Winnipeg. I meet Lorraine in Winnipeg.
Right.
I have kids down here.
Yeah.
None of that would have happened without that one meeting.
Right.
Now, it may have happened differently.
Yeah.
Right? Like things may have changed. But do I meet you?
Less likely.
If my dad doesn't meet her at the airport, do I meet you?
Yeah. I don't know.
Right?
There's a good chance to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where the fate comes into play.
Right.
In my mind, anyway. But again, I think that our lives are written for us.
Right.
We just need to live them.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, 2 questions. Do you believe in fate? And what's your definition of fate?
Yeah.
We'd like to know. Put them in the comments below. We would love to hear what you think about that. And Tim, I'm going to let you close out the show today.
Yeah. Well, it's been an awesome time talking to you here.
I love this.
When
I miss these.
We had, I think it's been 9-10 weeks since we've done one of these. And then
I can't remember.
And then I forget what you look like because you're always beside me in the interviews. And handsome fellow this guy is. So I would love it. We would love it if you shared, like Greg was saying, comment. Like, this is an interesting topic. Don't just talk about the Mandela effect. Like, everybody talks about the Mandela effect.
You love it.
It's this week someone was talking about it.
Yeah. We got some comments on Tyler Carr's stuff too, which is great because I think the interview with Tyler Carr was really good. Go back and watch it because he has a great story in terms of like his friend Matt and everything that happened with them.
That was an awesome moment. And we got a couple people
very touching
that have reached out to us and said how they really enjoyed it. So if you haven't watched any of the last 4 episodes, please do.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, share, all those things. And it's been a blast.
Yep.
Hope you have a good week, buddy.
You too.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Have a good one. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Sharing is caring.